BJ Mafia was popping. So while the Jacksonville Jaguars just clinched the AFC South and they are now preparing this Saturday evening for the Los Angeles Chargers, big news has came out from the Arizona Cardinals organization. Not only did they just fire their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, this past week, they are now looking to move on from star-studded wide receiver Deandre Hopkins. And the report is now coming out that Deandre Hopkins wants to play for either one, the Los Angeles Chargers, or two, the Jacksonville Jaguars. He wants to play with one of these young and up-and-coming quarterbacks in the NFL, both Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. And as a diehard Jags fan, as a Jaguars content creator, I'm here to say right here, right now, I could not be more obvious. I absolutely do not want DeAndre Hopkins on the Jaguars. Let me be very clear about that from the get-go. The Jaguars should not trade for DeAndre Hopkins. And let me give you guys 3 reasons why here today. The very last reason, I'm going to really drive it home. The first 2 reasons, I'm just going to kind of talk about and let you guys make your opinions on them. So let's get into the first topic. So getting into the first topic as to why I do not want the Jaguars to trade for wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is because, one, his age and now his injury history is kind of catching up to him. So DeAndre Hopkins, as of right now, is 30 years of age. Going into next season, he will turn 31 in the summer, and DeAndre Hopkins is now starting to show signs of depreciation and also some injuries catching up to you, which comes with age, especially when you play a physical sport like the game of football. Now, I will say, when healthy, DeAndre Hopkins is still one of the elite wide receivers in the game. He's in that top 5 to 7 upper echelon of receivers. I think that goes without saying when he's healthy and when he's playing at his potential. But DeAndre Hopkins this past season did serve a 6-game suspension at the beginning of the year due to performing enhancement drugs, in which he did serve. He did come back in week 7. Week 7 and 8, he was great. But then the last 2 games of this season, he did have a flare-up in his knee. So he did miss the last 2 games, week 17 and 18. And he only appeared in 9 games this year. DeAndre Hopkins, if you go back to 2021, only appeared in 10 games. He was dealing with some hamstring issues, which caused him to miss 3 games. And then he had a torn MCL, which caused him to miss the rest of the regular season at the end of 2021 as well, too. And then we all know that the Cardinals got bounced out early in the playoffs last year by the Los Angeles Rams before they went on to go win the Super Bowl. And to put this all into its proper perspective, outside of these last 2 seasons, every other year DeAndre Hopkins has been in the league, he's played in 15 or more games, which means he's been healthy, he's been durable, and he's obviously been an elite talent. Now you've seen the last 2 years with him getting up there in age, he's starting to get injury prone, and that is the first point that I want to drive home. Let's go on to the second topic. Now, the second topic is we're going to talk about his production and how much his production has decreased in these last 2 seasons compared to his first year out in Arizona. Now, if we go back to DeAndre Hopkins' last 1,000-yard season, that was back in 2020, DeAndre Hopkins had 115 receptions, 1,407 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Go to 2021, where he only played in 10 games last year, 42 receptions, 572 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And then if you look at him this season, while only appearing in 9 games, 64 receptions, 717 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So as of right now, I've got an aging wide receiver who's about to be 31 years of age, whose production is decreasing, and his risk of injury has gone up significantly. Let's move on to the third topic, the one I'm going to drive home the most, and I'm going to talk about the most. So moving into the third topic as to why the Jaguars should not trade for DeAndre Hopkins, it's because, 1, you've got to trade assets for him. 2, you're going to have to pay him. And 3, you have Calvin Ridley / other free agents that you need to pay this offseason and moving forward for the Jaguars. So let's start with DeAndre Hopkins, because that's the main topic of this video. DeAndre Hopkins, as of right now, in 2023 and in 2024, he's going to be making about $33 to $34 million in his base salary. He's going to have a cap hit this season of $30.75 million. Next season, $26.215 million. So the Jaguars essentially would be paying 2 years, $34 million for DeAndre Hopkins over the next 2 seasons, because in 2025, he will become an unrestricted free agent. To me, at 31, 32, and 33 years of age, with his production decreasing, on top of having to trade for him, you're probably giving up a second and a third, maybe a second and a fourth to go and get DeAndre Hopkins at this day and age in which he's at. You're probably not giving up a first. So my realistic guess would be, hey, a team's going to give up like a second and a third or a second and a fourth to go ahead and get DeAndre Hopkins if they want him that bad. I don't think it's worth it with the trade value and also what you'd be giving up to get him, considering the fact that you're giving up those trade value assets and you're also having to pay him about roughly $34 million at this age and when he's a lot more injury prone. Then let's actually talk about the big reason why the Jaguars should not go and acquire DeAndre Hopkins is also look at all of the other talent that the Jaguars have in the receiving room, and now they're going to get Calvin Ridley back. The Jaguars did trade for Calvin Ridley this offseason right before the deadline, and Calvin Ridley is serving a full season suspension this year due to the, little gamble that he had, and I'm not even going to really address that because that's besides the point. Calvin Ridley, the last time we saw him fully healthy for an entire season was back in 2020, and he was proven to be a top 10 receiver in the game with an aging Matt Ryan. Calvin Ridley in his last full season back in 2020, 15 games, 90 receptions, 1,374 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He is that vertical outside threat that the Jaguars need. He's going to not only open things up for Trevor Lawrence and really the deep vertical threat that the Jaguars need, phenomenal route runner. He's going to open up things in the middle of the field for guys like Zay Jones and Christian Kirk as well too. And Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram all had career highs this season. And let's look at the production that we've seen from these guys I just named. Christian Kirk this past season, 84 receptions, 1,108 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Zay Jones, 82 receptions, 823 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Evan Ingram, 73 receptions, 766 yards, 4 touchdowns. And now the Jaguars are adding another guy as a vertical threat, an amazing route runner, and is a guy who is capable of getting these 50-50 balls in traffic in Calvin Ridley, that deep physical body that you need on the outside. And now the Jaguars are adding that to a bunch of great skill position guys who are now going to be in year 2 of a system under Doug Peterson, another year with continuity and chemistry with Trevor Lawrence. And these guys all had career years, and you're going to have to pay Evan Ingram this offseason. I think every Jaguars fan can get behind that, and I've talked about it on Twitter. I'll say it again. I think Evan Ingram, I'm paying him about 4 years, $50 million. I'm paying him in the Dallas Goedert range. I'm paying him anywhere between being like the 5th and the 8th highest paid tight end in football, and I think he would be willing to take a team-friendly deal. Even if you don't want to pay him, you're going to have to go ahead and franchise tag him. You're going to have to keep Evan Ingram around. He has the potential to be the greatest tight end in Jaguars history. And then outside of just those skill position guys that I named, let's talk about other free agents that the Jaguars are going to have to make a decision on this offseason. We're talking about Evan Ingram, Marvin Jones Jr., DeJuan Smoot, Arden Key, Chris Manhertz, and Dan Arnold, Andrew Winger, Jawan Taylor. Like, those are guys who all make solid contributions to this team in a lot of different ways. These are very underrated, valuable assets to this team that the Jaguars are going to have to make big decisions with. Then let's look into 2024. The Jaguars are going to have Shaquille Griffin, who I expect to be gone off this team after this offseason anyways. We'll be having a dead cap on his contract. Jamal Agnew, Roy Robertson Harris, Kayvon Chason, we'll see. The verdict's still out on him, but I don't expect the Jaguars to pay him. And the big name, Josh Allen. Like, that's a topic for another day. But there's a lot of guys that the Jaguars have to really consider, hey, are we going to have to pay these guys? Who do we want to keep? Who do we want to trade in? Who do we want to let walk in free agency? These are some big names on this roster that we need to go ahead and keep. And kind of getting a little bit more into the cap situation, the Jaguars are projected to have $8 million in cap space this offseason, which is projected to be bottom 5 in the league. And the Jaguars, they are already active at $234 million worth of active cap on the roster right now. The Jaguars are essentially in cap hell. There is no need to force the issue, try to restructure contracts, give up assets, and also have an aging player in Deandre Hopkins, who is significantly injury prone at this point in his career and is only looking to be a depreciating asset. There is no need for the Jaguars to go out there and go and get a Deandre Hopkins. The Jaguars' mindset going into this offseason should be, we're going to re-sign Evan Ingram, we're going to have Calvin Ridley in this offense, and now we're going to have another year with this chemistry underneath Doug Peterson, Press Taylor on this offense with guys like Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, maybe Marvin Jones is back around next year, Jamal Agnew will still be here, the list goes on. Now, the very last point that I want to drive home with this Deandre Hopkins topic might sound like a controversial one, and all of you guys know, look, man, I'm the biggest Jamal Agnew fan out there. Like, I am a huge day one supporter of Jamal Agnew because, look, man, I love Jamal Agnew. Me and all my homies, we love Jamal Agnew. And I mean this in all seriousness, you guys. I would rather have Jamal Agnew on this team. I think he's going to be a lot more valuable and can provide a lot more to this offense and really just the team as a whole than Deandre Hopkins would the next, let's just say, season or two, right? Jamal Agnew is not only significantly cheaper, it is extremely hard to find an explosive special teams player that can consistently put the team in a good field position time in and time out. Like, every time Agnew gets the ball, something great and something special can happen. Whether it's in the misdirection, whether it's jet sweeps, whether it's on offense, catching these 5-yard passes and making something out of nothing, or whether it's on special teams. You got a guy in Jamal Agnew who's a team player, clearly wants to be here, and he's significantly cheaper and more explosive, I would say, on multiple sides of the ball and can do more offensively speaking. with the Jaguars, the way that they're constructed right now and the way that they run their offense, I mean that in all seriousness. I actually believe Jamal Agnew would provide more of a valuable asset to the Jaguars right now than DeAndre Hopkins would. Seriously, like, I'm not even trolling right now. Jamal Agnew is that guy. He's cheaper, he's not as injury prone, and he would do a lot more for this team. And that's really what it comes down to as well. Is Jamal Agnew the receiver that DeAndre Hopkins is? Absolutely not. Come on, you guys. I'm not that idiotic, and I'm not that much of a homer. But I'm just saying overall, and you guys get what I'm saying, the overall gist of what Jamal Agnew brings to this team. Yeah, I'd rather keep Swagnew around. But Jaguar fans, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. I don't think that this should be an unpopular opinion. This should be a very popular opinion, even though I know Twitter is probably going to be on my ass about this one. When it comes to DeAndre Hopkins to the Jaguars, I say no. Maybe some of y'all say yes. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But Jaguar fans, if you guys enjoyed today's video, man, make sure you guys drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me in the channel out tremendously. And if you guys are new here, consider hitting that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys go follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below. But thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ. I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.